Fantasy Football Training Camp is back at Treasure Island Resort and Casino. Join Paul Charchin and the Fantasy Football Weekly crew in the Full Deck Ballroom Friday, August 16th from 6 to 9. Stop by for a live broadcast from 6 to 8. Then stick around for the Fantasy Football Deep Dive. Great prizes, including a $1,000 grand prize. Full details now, KFAN.com, keyword calendar.
Well, the way things were going on Sunday at Target Center, it sounded like the crowd trying to get in for Lynx Fever was kind of like Argentina and Colombia. People were Wendell Epps, voice of the Lynx, joining me now at Epps_Wendell via the X machine. Follow him now. You hear his voice during Lynx games here on the Fan, where you're home for the Howl and the Lynx. And you've heard him in recent times, 9 to noon with Max Fuller. He was on the Sunday show, worst case scenario. Again, I call it best case scenario. But how you doing, man? Nice to meet you.
Hey, man, I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me.
Was it at all like that Copa America final? People crawling on top of each other and through ventilation ducts and tearing fences down, weeping and gnashing of teeth to get in to see the Caitlin Clark and, Fever, the appropriate name, it seems like, for that team. How cool was it being part of, I think, the largest attendance in club history on Sunday against with the Lynx in town?
Yeah, as far as regular season goes, it was our largest attended crowd ever. I mean, literally, as soon as I was driving into the arena, I just see nothing but Clark jerseys around Target Center and a lot of Lynx fans filing in. And on my way in, the Skyway was packed. I could barely breathe as I was making my way over to Target Center. But man, the atmosphere was incredible. I loved what I saw. Obviously, it was a big milestone with Caitlin Clark in the building for the first time as a pro. But even for the Minnesota Lynx, just for everyone to be there to watch that game, it was a great experience and certainly a fun one to call.
So if it's all right with you, I'm gonna bring it backwards a bit to then move forward and talk about this team, who is absolutely a factor in the WNBA standings in the 2024 season. Cheryl Reeve just has this thing humming right now, even with Nafisa Collier kind of working her way on the mend at that particular moment. And we'll talk about that too. But how'd you get here? First season with the Lynx, High Point University, broadcasting was the name of the game for you. And you find yourself in this spot, which is a terrific opportunity with the Lynx. North Carolina, is that where High Point is? Is that accurate?
Yep, North Carolina.
So are you North Carolina native then as well? And
no, so I actually was born and raised in Fairfax, Virginia, right outside Washington, D.C. So lived there my entire life. And then when I went to college, that was my first time going out of state. Went to North Carolina, High Point University there. Pretty small school, but very fun school. They had just launched a sports media program at the time that I went there. So I got a lot of opportunities right away, became the play-by-play voice for their athletics program, calling every sport, you name it, basketball, soccer, lacrosse, even did track and field. I just did a little bit of anything and everything to get my hands dirty, and eventually did that all 4 years, called over 100 games, was recognized as the University Sports Broadcaster of the Year my junior year, and then that's when I really knew that I wanted to do this as a profession. And then ultimately I did some internships throughout that as well at Fox Sports, at a local NBC affiliate. I started freelancing at other schools in North Carolina, and then eventually my first job out of college last year. It's crazy to think it's only been a little over a year, but August of 2023, I guess less than a year actually, I began my first really official role out of college with the Orlando Magic. I was a radio graduate associate, so I worked a full year in the NBA with the Magic doing different things like producing, editing. I was hosting a little bit on pregame and postgame, and then my big thing with them was I was working with their G League team, the Osceola Magic. I became their broadcaster. I was doing play-by-play, analyst, sideline reporting, and I was able to build a nice reel from that. And ultimately, that helped me get my name in the hat for this Minnesota Lynx job. And fortunately enough, I got the opportunity, and it's been a life-changing opportunity. I love Minnesota so much, and the Lynx organization's fantastic.
Yeah, they're good people, and you fell into a good one with them. There's no doubt, and the path to get there is interesting to me. And from a broadcasting standpoint, was it always hoops for you? I mean, even prior, you mentioned it. I mean, probably not until High Point and getting those opportunities and doing it all, right? Like, did you have a backpack? There might be a couple of books in there, but there's also like a Comrex, a pair of headphones.
Oh yeah,
everything.
There was probably maybe one textbook max, honestly, in the backpack. But yeah, I've always known I wanted to do hoops. I mean, I played AAU basketball a lot growing up. I love basketball. I love the game itself. I always was a huge NBA fan. So if I could pick any sport to do, it was always basketball. And I always had the dream of working in the NBA. Little did I know I was going to be able to achieve that, having just turned 22 last year. But it's amazing amazing. And now being able to step in an avenue like the WNBA, because I covered a lot of the women's sports teams at High Point, like women's lacrosse, women's soccer, and I got to be part of, they both went to their conference championships and actually won one. So I got to be part of their championship runs there. So to be part of this era now with the Lynx, where I personally think they are a championship contender, it's great to be a part of it because it's a familiar territory for me, but it's obviously a much bigger stage right now with this being the WNBA and obviously all the popularity around it right now.
Did you ever have favorite Voxes growing up? Did you ever, just voices, people gravitate to voices, right?
Yeah, they do.
And and you found this, there's an interesting thing for me just as a fan. I'm a consumer. I'm never going to be, I don't believe, a play-by-play guy. but as a fan of sports, you ingest it. There's a combination. You have great Voxes who are the most articulate people on the planet. They sell you the story. They tell you the story in the most beautiful way possible. On the other end of it, there's just some natural given talent from a vocal standpoint, right? I mean, the best storyteller in the world, if he's got voice, if there are vocal issues, sometimes that story gets lost. But were there certain Voxes maybe growing up where you're like, man, this guy, I have to stop what I'm doing when this guy's talking?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, for me, it was really two people growing up. Kevin Harlan and Mike Breen were really the big ones, obviously. I mean, those are the classics. But even then, I mean, I was always a fan of local broadcasters as well. I grew up a big Washington Wizards fan. So, like, Steve Buckcast was the Wizards play-by-play voice for over 20 years. And he was just the guy that I always listened to because I'd watch 82 Washington Wizards games and I'd hear his voice a lot. And then when I went to North Carolina, Eric Collins, play-by-play voice of the Charlotte Hornets, I became fascinated with all of his energy, his hum-diddly-dee calls and how do you do? I was like, man, this dude's hyped up, man. I love it. So, and it's a great point you make about the voice, like that really, especially on radio. And it's so important because that's a voice you listen to. And with me doing the games by myself, I try to make sure that I really put forth the best effort I can for the fans to make sure that, they're listening to a voice that they want to keep listening to for all the entire season.
The doing the broadcast by yourself, and we were joking about it off air. There's the good times, bad times of it, right? Like you're flying without a parachute in some ways. There's no safety net. But in the same sense, it's like, I don't have to, will this guy just shut up? Yeah, we understand. Specifically in hoops, and I always find the balance, TV, you do radio, but it's always funny when you watch NBA games where there's going to be an elite moment, right? Like you've listened to your own highlights, you get the opportunity to build it up, then there's the exclamation point on the end of a big bucket or a foul or a moment. But sometimes when you're watching NBA on TV, some guy's telling you about how many assists a guy is averaging as you watch some tomahawk backboard breaking slam. So when I play TV NBA highlights, they're about 4 seconds long. So I always gravitate to whether it's Alan Horton with the Wolves, you with the Lynx. I need a little explanation as to what the hell's going on. So
exactly.
Doing the games by yourself, good times, bad times, but you've fallen into this role and you've kind of, I shouldn't say fallen into, my mindset here is, you've gotten the rhythm of doing it on your own to the point where there's a comfort level there.
No, there definitely is. I mean, it honestly, for those 2 hours, it's a mix of the Minnesota Lynx and the Wendell Epps show. Like, I'm able to control how we do our broadcast. I came in and this is what the Lynx wanted when they hired me. They wanted me to come in with ideas of how to spice up our radio broadcast because this is the first time we've had it since the 2019 season. It's been a long time since the Minnesota Lynx.
It has been that long.
Yeah, so, making the return to airwaves, it's certainly a big moment here for the Lynx. So for me, it was how can we humanize these players? So every broadcast that we do, you listen to during our halftime show, we'll air 1 to 2 halftime features. Typically, it'll be one-on-one interviews I do with players, just so you guys can get to know them off the court as well. So that way, while I'm describing, Alyssa Peely just knocked down a 3-pointer, Bridget Carlton steal, runaway layup, that way during halftime, we can take a little bit of a break from all the fast-paced action that you hear on the air, and we can get to sit down with these players, and we'll air snippets from our podcast, Lynx Unleashed. So we do all these things because we want to make sure that these players are known, obviously for their on-the-court talents, but also their personalities off the court, because we have some great stories to share about these girls.
Well, let's jump into some of that then. I mean, the Lynx at this stage, and again, I mean, you were out there for the road trip, and the Sparks, just speaking of lack of spark, the Sparks right now, and Cameron Brink's out for the year, and they're on the absolute grind. The only team it seems like they can beat these days, the Las Vegas Aces.
Yeah, I guess.
But team gets blown out by Seattle, and then into the weekend you have the historic regular season historic crowd. You lose one tough. I mean, it just didn't happen over the final 5 minutes. But overall, they're a factor. They're in what has looked like a top-heavy WNBA the last couple of years. There's a lot of parity, and teams like the Lynx are right there in the mix. What's the season been like thus far for you being able to watch it so closely?
It's been incredible. It's more than I ever could have anticipated. And it's interesting because Cheryl Reeve said the same thing, and I completely agree with her. When I watched the Lynx during training camp, because I was there throughout the entire duration of training camp, watching them get ready for the season, I mean, I couldn't believe my eyes with just the energy I saw. I remember, you realize that WNBA, it's more than 12 players that are in training camp. You got 18 to 20 players. And I was like, who are they going to cut? Like, how are they going to get down to 12? Because I was looking and we did 2 mock broadcasts for the preseason. I was calling those games. They weren't aired live, but I was still calling them. And I was like, man, everyone is so talented. So it was tough to see some of those good players in preseason that I actually got to know a little bit get cut. And then eventually, once the season began, I knew right away from those first 2 games against Seattle. Granted, it was a tough loss up there on this past Friday, but those first 2 games, we beat Seattle good. We beat them in their hometown on opening night, and then we beat them in double overtime in our home opener. And that's when I was like, this team is legit. And then obviously we won the Commissioner's Cup championship, which I was so happy because the ESPN preseason power rankings had the Minnesota Lynx number 9, man.
Yeah.
Number 9. I mean, people thought the Lynx were going to be chasing for Paige Beckers. And as much as I love Paige Beckers, and I know she's a Minnesota native, we got our eyes set on getting a championship. And
Absolutely.
And this team is so good. We have Nafisa Collier, and that was why I was so confused by the preseason ranking, because I was like, Nafisa Collier is a top 5 player in the WNBA. How is a team with a top 5 player not going to be projected to be at least competitive in the playoffs? And then Kayla McBride, she's having herself an all-star season. She's going to be playing in the all-star game this weekend. Bridget Carlton has stepped up. She's having herself a career year. Alana Smith, Courtney Williams, Natisha Heidemann, you all name it. They've been great additions. So this Lynx team is very deep, and there's so many great players that can do a lot of things.
Specific to Nafisa, who, you're right, she's MVP caliber.
MVP, man.
MVP. But she is MVP caliber when she's healthy. Now, this foot thing's kind of worrisome. And, plantar fasciitis, just kind of trying to weave our way to the right answer in terms of what's going on with her. And maybe this is just something. And, following, I don't know how closely you follow other Minnesota sports, but Carlos Correa, one of the best players in the Minnesota Twins, he's now had foot injuries, plantar specific, the last 2 years in a row. It was just announced a few days ago. He's an all-star who won't be playing in tonight's all-star game. Are we worried at all about her just kind of working her way back? Do we got to kind of trust the idea that, she knows how to play with this? This sounds like it's not a brand new thing. And we want her back when she's ready, of course, but at the same time, we're going to have to figure out how to trudge on without her.
Yeah, no doubt about that. I mean, obviously it's been tough playing without Fee these past couple games. We definitely missed her on Sunday. But the one thing about Fee and me really getting to know her as a player and as a person this year is that she's a tough cat. She's going to play whenever she can, but she's also going to understand that, we're in it for the long haul, not the short haul. This is a marathon, not a sprint. So, for example, like tomorrow's game, we're playing Atlanta, a team below 500, final game before the Olympic break. Fee's playing she's an all-star because she's on the Olympic team and she's getting ready to play in Paris, and Cheryl Reeve's the coach, and Cheryl Reeve has high expectations of what Fee can do in this year's Olympics. She's going to be her on a national stage. You know, she wants to make sure that she's healthy for that. So I think for Fee right now, her sitting out is good, because if you watch any of those first couple games, Fee was playing 35 to 40 minutes a night, and the game itself is 40 minutes long. So she was out there for a lot. And not only that, she was also battling a wrist injury at one point during the season. So it's been tough on her, and it's tough on a lot of these players because they play overseas right before the regular season starts, and then they come here. We have one player, Dorica Uas, who literally had to come right from Italy straight to Minnesota as soon as her season ended. So these players don't get a break. And Dorica was telling me last week, I can't wait to finally get some relaxation come later this week. And I'm like, I don't blame you. I mean, same with me. I'm coming straight from the NBA with the Orlando Magic, so I know what it feels like to just continue to be on the grind. But Nafisa Collier, she's a talented player. She is going to be back. I wouldn't worry about her health down the road. I think she's going to be perfectly fine for us down the line.
So it is Ujas, correct?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. See, you're helping me out in a lot of ways. You're a human pronunciation guy.
Yeah, exactly. You learn to be. Yeah.
Because I can text Abby, who works with the Lynx. I can text, and she's always super helpful. But I just, is it Juhas? Is it Jahas? Is there a pronunciation or an emphasis that I'm missing there? So it's
the worst is Alana Smith.
Juhas.
Because a lot of people thought Alana Smith or Elena Smith. It's Alana, like Atlanta.
Atlanta without the T.
Yeah, exactly.
Atlanta without
the
T.
That's how Abby told me how to pronounce it. Because I remember when I first came, I was saying Elena Smith. So.
Well, let me try to go 2 for 2. So it's Juhas and it's Peely. Is that accurate?
Alyssa Peely. There you go.
So, in you follow this, you know she's a rookie. She's a selection. There was Cheryl got tricky in the draft. She moved out of a spot, finds her way to Peely. A lot of people are like, well, if you would have just stayed there, Cheryl, you would have gotten Angel Reese kind of playing those games or whatever. Haven't heard Peely's name mentioned a ton, at least in the recent times. How's her development going as the newest, freshest member of the Lynx?
I think Alyssa, what she's getting right now is more so learning lessons that have to do with the longevity of her career. And I think she's learning probably more off the court right now than she is on the court, only because she hasn't played consistent rotation minutes. But we've seen what Alyssa Peely can do. She had one game against Phoenix. She scores 20 points, career high, knocks down 4 3-pointers in that game. When she wants to be aggressive, she can. And she's a very active player. I think for her, it's just about learning the ropes a little bit more. And we have so many vets on this team. And I think that was something that kind of just came to fruition because Cheryl Reeve and her squad made an aggressive pursuit in free agency, and they were able to land, like I said, Courtney Williams, Alana Smith, Natisha Heidemann. That's 3 rotational players that you have to play. Cecilia Zanalissini used to play for the Lynx back when they won a championship with the Maya Moore days. She just came back this season. She's got to be in the rotation. Obviously, Fee has to be in the rotation. K-Mac. So it's just a deep team where it's hard to get minutes. And for Alyssa Peely, I think right now, she's certainly a great talent. I see her getting better and better. She's getting more confident as the season progresses. I think for her, really the big thing is it's just about waiting for the opportunity. And she's going to get it. She's going to play, minutes depending on the matchup and things like that. But Alyssa Peely is certainly a great talent. I know she has a bright future in the W.
Thinking about Peely, and I mentioned Angel Reese, also a rookie, and Caitlin, we just saw her on Sunday. It kind of feels like, the conversation around women's basketball has always been, there's been a few stars, but what's the health of the league? And I know that you haven't spent 10 years following the Lynx, but you're not daft to what's happening and what has happened with the WNBA. Does it feel in some ways that there's an optimism around the next generation or the new generation from a health standpoint of a league that is still asking for eyeballs to get focused on it?
Absolutely. I was just talking about this with a friend of mine the other day, and it was like Caitlin Clark, obviously we know she's number one right now getting all the attention, but when is that day going to come where it's just not Caitlin Clark talk? Because and that day I think is going to come sooner rather than later, because you look at some of the upcoming draft classes, for example, Paige Beckers, I think she's going to draw a lot of eyes when she comes in the W next year, because she is honestly herself a star and a phenom who's going to be a great player in the W. Juju Watkins.
USC, right?
USC.
That's who I was thinking of, yeah.
She just won an ESPY last week for best breakthrough athlete. I mean, Juju Watkins, in my opinion, is probably going to put up the same numbers, if not more, than what Caitlin Clark is doing in her rookie year. She's that talented. She did all this just this past year as a freshman. So there's certainly a lot of bigger names. And also what I love too with the W is you're seeing more international players come over. There's about 3 or 4 rookies this season that I say rookies because Sevgi Uzan on Dallas, she's 26 years old and she's a rookie coming over from Turkey. We have Olivia Pupa from France, 30 years old, considered her rookie because this is her first year in the W. Julie Von Loo on the Washington Mystics, also 30 years old, rookie out of Belgium. So you're seeing more of these international players come over here. And I'm so glad we're going to get the expansion, the first expansion team next year and then following year with Toronto because we need it. There's too many good players in the W that I saw during preseason get cut. And also players that are drafted. There were players drafted in the second and third round that didn't make a team and they're not playing in the WNBA right now. So, I just want to see that day when everyone that gets drafted in the W should be playing. So I'm excited for the future. No doubt about it.
It's kind of interesting. Last thing, and then we'll pause and then we'll continue this conversation. Wendell Epps, voice of the Lynx in studio. We see this in the NBA. It's kind of a story of the sport of basketball in general right now. You mentioned a 26-year-old rookie from Turkey. Well, she's a rookie here, but she's probably been playing professionally in Turkey for like 5-6 years. You look at the NBA. We just had, why am I blanking on Luka Doncic? He turned, 14, 15, started playing professionally. But in the NBA draft, 4 first rounders were from France. And it's kind of interesting to see the growth. And that comes, of course, with grand exposure and such. The NBA and TV deals, they've gone through the roof in recent years. Guys getting $300 million contracts. WNBA, maybe a bit farther away from those conversations. But you're seeing that growth of the sport in general. And organically, that means definitely a hell of a lot more international diversity on these rosters.
Yeah, absolutely. No doubt about that. And I can't wait for that to happen because there's so much talent all over the world. And I think we're only going to see more and more growth here with the WNBA. So certainly a lot of things to be excited for. And that's going to give us more cities to go to, more eyeballs in the league itself. So definitely very excited future for the W.
Well, we're going to pause and we're going to come back. We're going to talk about the excitement of the fact that for, again, a league that has in the last few years been quite top heavy. And unfortunately, the Lynx, not a significant factor in that mix. They are a factor this year, and what that thing looks like down the home stretch here. We got All-Star games, we got Olympics, we got things to juggle, but the team's good. And I want to talk more about Cheryl's Cheryl's squad here, the Lynx with Wendell Epps. Follow him via X at Epps, EPPS_Wendell. That's WENDE, 2 L's on the back end. Is that
yeah,
correct?
There you go. WENDELL.
Did you see my eyes almost crossing themselves over?
I was maybe like 12 years old when I learned how to spell my first name, so you're all good.
Yeah, if we ever did a KFAN spelling bee, it would be a race to the bottom, I'll tell you that. But that's Wendell Epps. I'm Nordo. More Lynx conversation and hoops around the corner on the Fan after a little cash giveaway.
That's right, the cash thing. The Fan at BigDeck.com. I'm going to give you shots. Put $1,000 in your hand at the National Cash Contest. Head to KFAN.com. Enter the keyword bonus for this hour. The keyword is bonus. KFAN.com. Keyword bonus. Nothing defines Minnesota quite like its 10,000 lakes, and we need to keep them beautiful. Post on social media using the hashtag #ChooseChill to help Coors Light, KFAN, and Conservations Minnesota protect the lakes, rivers, and waters we love. Use hashtag #ChooseChill.
Nordo in for PA, 9 to noon. I can tell you thus far tomorrow, we're going to catch up after tonight's All-Star game. Dan Hayes of The Athletic. Yesterday was a Strib Vibe, Star Tribune with Gessling and Lavelle. Tomorrow's going to be an Athletic Vibe. Alec Lewis of The Athletic. We're going to catch up on the Minnesota Vikings. It'll be 10 days until the first training camp practice. We'll chat with him. And then Dan Hayes on the Minnesota Twins in the midst of a chill before they host the Brewers on Saturday. And we're just going to get up to date on Carlos's plantar thing. Too much plantar fasciitis in this town, to be honest with you. We would like that all to go away. But also now Royce Lewis. Let's get him off the IL. What are they going to do as they spark themselves into that final second half push towards the playoffs? But in studio now, the Lynx, who have a nooner tomorrow against Atlanta. Atlanta in town at Target Center. Stupidly asking, it's a camp game tomorrow, right? Like kids are going to be at Target Center, and that's why it's an early game. Is that accurate?
Yeah, exactly. Kids are going to be there. It's going to be an advocate for women in sports, for kids in sports. So yeah, it's going to be a nice atmosphere at Target Center tomorrow.
Oh, that's going to be sweet. So catch that, Atlanta and the Lynx. Now, I mentioned it last segment, kind of the idea of, and you're from Virginia by way of North Carolina, and now you are here. There probably wasn't a lot of time to do a ton of research on just Minnesota sports in general. You know the Twins, you know the Wolves, you know the Vikings. These other teams exist, the Minnesota Wild and St. Paul. And so, but maybe what you don't know is how heartbroken we are and how sad we are. The Minnesota Lynx, Titletown, right?
Yeah.
4 rings over the course of 7 years. Love that. The PWHL, the women's squad, just housed a title in their league.
That's right.
But Minnesota sports fans, we are very familiar with heartbreak. We are very familiar with sadness. We are very familiar with being good enough to be part of the conversation. We hear our names on national television. Hey, look, Ma, get in here. They're talking about us on the national TV channel. We get to that point, and ultimately, one way or another, we call it the Core Four. They find their way fizzling out of the postseason, usually in just awful train derailment-like fashion. So with the Lynx, Can we have the hope? Can we allow ourselves to love again? Can we open ourselves up to this team right now? Because it's been the Aces world, and we're just living in it the last couple of years. New York Liberty are damn good. And as we were talking about the new generation last segment, the younger players infiltrating the league and doing so in loud and successful fashion, it is still the Kelsey Plums and the Ionescus and some big timers in this league, certainly, that have established themselves. Can the Lynx hang with them?
I think they can. I mean, you just got to look back to that Commissioner's Cup championship game. Yeah, listen, I'm a DC sports fan, so I grew up not even being part of the conversation. No, only knowing that once game number 82 hits in the NBA season, you're done. Yeah.
Well, you were a Nats fan, right?
No, I don't follow baseball like that.
Oh.
So Wizards and Commanders, I know I should have, so I could have been part of one championship.
Could you even fraudulently, I mean, and maybe you're just too honorable, you're a man of principle, you wouldn't fraudulently jump on the Natties bandwagon?
No, I wouldn't, man. I'm gonna basketball, football, and even soccer. So if DC United won,
you live in Minnesota long enough, you will jump on any bandwagon.
I will jump on anything now. So I got ties with all these sports teams. But no, I mean, listen, with the Lynx, and this is a key thing to know is that our starting backcourt, both 30 years old or older. Courtney Williams just turned 30. Kayla McBride, also in her 30s right now. We're not getting any younger. If we're going to win right now, we need to win at this point in this timeline the next 1 to 2 to 3 years. And like I said, the Commissioner's Cup Championship game, we beat New York. That was a stunning win on the road.
How cool was that?
That was amazing to be part of that, seeing the celebration, all the champagne. It was incredible. And we have one of the best, if not the best head coach ever here in the history of the W, and Cheryl Reeve, who I know you never can doubt Cheryl Reeve. She's always going to build a squad of content. It wasn't too long ago that dynasty was going on with Maya Moore and Sylvia Fowles and Rebecca Lamar Brunson. And here with now this team, Nafisa Collier, Kayla McBride, I think we can. Now, obviously, it's going to be a little different in the best of 3 or best of 5 series, but the key for the Lynx is just staying consistent. And I think as long as they stay consistent, we have everyone healthy, the sky's the limit for us.
I dig that. I must jump to the text machine. Text message is 64686, and I'm going to put you on the spot here. If you don't know her name, that's okay. Did Wendell, excuse me, I read his typo. Did Wendell do anything with High Point Women's Golf? This guy plays golf in Fargo with Tani Tasasso.
That name sort of sounds familiar. Unfortunately, we didn't broadcast golf. So that's literally the one sport. Yeah, we didn't broadcast golf. I was like, man, you're about to say High Point. You're about to say an athlete that I definitely know. And I'm like, man, golf literally is the only sport we didn't get to do at High Point.
So you did baseball, you did hoops, you did football.
I did every sport. I at least tried. The only one that didn't click with me.
Except the one where you get to breathe the most.
Yeah. Oh, no.
You didn't do golf?
No, I didn't. I didn't get to do golf, unfortunately.
No, that's okay. I'm just thinking because and you've done it, and I have Alan Horton, actually, voice of the Wolves, in studio on Thursday. And again, going back to the solo piece, but it's so frenetic, right? And again, constantly telling that story.
Yeah.
I mean, picture the idea of doing golf and being able to, and the shot, it's on the green, etc.
I know. Unfortunately,
you're piping in the nature,
right,
and then you can just go grab something to sip on for a little bit.
Yeah, you can.
2 minutes in between swings.
Yeah, it's true. But I don't know if my style would fit golf. I think anyone that listens to my broadcast know I bring a lot of high energy, so it would be tough to just have to sit there and just narrate it. But hey, I'm flexible. So maybe one of these days, when I was in Florida, obviously living in Florida, you get into golf. So I definitely was, hitting up Top Golf and then checking out the golf courses there. So, definitely plan on heading back there and getting my golf swing. Unfortunately, I'm a lefty, though, so a little tougher. We have to use those special clubs.
Wendell Epps, at Epps_Wendell via Twitter. He's the voice of the Lynx. You experienced it on Sunday. Caitlin Clark in town as part of the new generation conversation, as part of the parity in the league. As you see a team like the Indiana Fever, who at one point it's just they're a 1-win operation and everything's negative, and Caitlin's trying to pass it to people and they're stone-handing it and it's going out of bounds. It's a complete disaster. Well, they've turned things around. They're actually in the playoff mix now. But the Caitlin Clark effect, I thought it was interesting last segment when you mentioned that, it's all about Caitlin Clark, but you feel like that aspect of things, that's going to cool off and end sooner maybe than anyone thinks. Why do you say that in terms of, and maybe it is just the development of other young players in the league, but, coming into this thing, it was, and I'm sure you saw it, it was, was there resentment by people with the amount of fanfare around Caitlin? The fact that the stadiums, these arenas are selling out. Some teams are having to move to other arenas to house the number of fans that want to see Caitlin. How do you see that evening out as things continue on?
Yeah, no doubt it's going to take still a couple more years, but I think I'm saying that based on what I've seen in history in some other professional sports league. For example, the NBA was pretty much nothing until Larry Bird and Magic Johnson came. They really revolutionized the game. Then, of course, Michael Jordan did, and when Michael Jordan was there, everyone's like, okay, well, who's going to take his reigns?
They had games on tape to lay back in the day.
Exactly. I was not alive, so I don't know what that was like. But then LeBron comes in, right? And then even now, we're entering a different shift in the NBA. LeBron, Curry, KD, they're going to be gone in the next 5 to 10 years, and maybe not LeBron. Who knows how long he has? But, you have Wembanyama.
He's got to get his son paid for at least another couple.
Yeah, exactly. Anthony Edwards, a future star. But that's why I remain so optimistic with the W, because I think in a couple years, we know obviously the addition of charter flights this year. There was more national television games. Pretty soon, that's going to become the standard. It's just going to become a part of it. We're not going to be making that a big deal, and we shouldn't be making that a big deal. But like I said, when Juju Watkins, Paige Beckers, and for example, if someone's playing the Fever and Caitlin Clark and they score 30 or 40 points, they're going to get attention, right?
A lot more people are going
to be like, I need to watch them play. Like, that's why I really wanted the Lynx to win on Sunday, because I was like, man, national televised game. game in front of all those fans. If Kayla McBride can drop 30 points, I mean, look how much attention that's going to give to her, more attention that she deserves. So that's why I remain so optimistic, because there's so many players that I've seen throughout all my games that I called. We've seen every team now. There's so many talented individuals in this league. And I think, obviously, yes, I understand Caitlin's probably always going to be the face as long as she's in, but pretty soon there's going to be other players that obviously won't surpass her, but will at least, still it'll be a conversation. Hey, here's the faces, not the face of the WNBA.
That's awesome, man. And I really appreciate you coming in today. The energy that you have on the Hoops broadcast, you brought it today.
Always, man. It's 24/7, man. It stays locked in.
That's what 9 to noon is all about. It's about energy. And, we're loving this season though, man. It's whether it's, baseball, the baseball team right now, half the city can't watch them. So you're latching on to other things. You can gain fans that way. The team's good. You're gaining fans that way. But I still, I'm fascinated and in some ways just stuck on the idea of the new generation. And when we're seeing it from a talent perspective in the league, you're doing great work for the Lynx, man.
Thank you.
Keep it up.
Appreciate it.
That's Wendell Epps. That's at Epps_Wendell via Twitter. He's the voice of the Lynx. You can hear him when we broadcast Lynx games right here on the Fan. And next up, a nooner tomorrow with Atlanta. So put that on your calendar. Final segment, 9 to noon. Nordo in for PA. That's next.
Fan.
Excited for the Rube party on Friday, Brett? I heard you're doing 5 minutes of stand-up comedy on Friday night on stage at Forgotten Star Brewing. Is that correct?
I'm still cramming for it. Yeah, we'll see what happens. I'm not looking forward to that at all. No, the Rube party, can't wait.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. Absolutely. 5 years since we've done it, and I'm excited to hang out at Forgotten Star. The place sounds amazing. Troy and Detroit Lakes, Nords, am I crazy? I'm watching every minute of Wolves Summer League, and now I want Dillingham to be our day one starting point guard, and Conley coming off the bench with Nas, Shannon, etc. Troy and Detroit Lakes. No, you're not crazy. That's the thing. Is I'm not sitting around. This is the first time in so long just watching every single minute of it. I can't help myself. And tonight, I had a little bit of homework for the 9 to noon listening audience. This isn't real homework. You actually don't have to if you don't want to. But there is a game on tonight at 7 p.m. And it's on ESPN2. Also the Plus. If you can ever figure out how to log into your ESPN Plus account, by the way. I don't know if I'm the only one that has had this issue, but I have been trying to watch certain things on there and something pops up. Maybe there's an article. I got this QB talker that I didn't get into today. That is basically going to be 20 minutes of me roundabout getting to Sam Darnold. But I can't log into my freaking ESPN Plus account. Who cares? My problem, not yours. For a little homework. The Wolves and Sixers Summer League team. So whether it's Dillingham, that's like the next... I mean, he's the next John Morant. As per Kyle Rudolph. No, I'm kidding. But the athleticism. And you'll see what I'm talking about, where he's 19 years old and he's got to figure it out. But you'll see that in motion tonight. You'll see the 23-year-old Terrence Shannon Jr. look like a freak of human nature, and that he's got to be with the big club right away, playing minutes and contributing. But just the run that they went on, the vibe around this team right now, I can't get enough of it. So I'm super excited about it. Chris Hines is doing a terrific job. Wolves assistant Chris Hines is doing a great job. Chris Finch is just sitting back and letting his assistant handle business, leading the Summer League team. Deshaun Nix is a guy that you'll get to know in this process as well. I don't know what his ultimate trajectory is in the league and even with this team, but he's been fun to watch through this process. Josh Minot, I was talking about it with Parker Fox during the 10 a.m. hour. He's certainly excited to be there, and he's all over the place. And defensively, he's provided some moments. I'm just not sure how he fits into everything that's happening. But on the try-hard scale, Minot's off the charts. There's absolutely no doubt about it. So just really pumped for that. So a little bit of homework, if you are so compelled and so interested, because tomorrow 9 to noon, we are going to talk about it. And as I mentioned last segment, there is going to be an athletic feel to the mix tomorrow. We're going to have the Athletics' Alec Lewis on at 10 a.m., and the Jordan Addison thing's going to come up. But camp's going to come up. Maybe a Justin Jefferson talker in the mix. But we'll be 10 days from the first Vikings training camp practice. He's, similar to apparently Wendell Epps is heading out for the next couple of weeks. He's going to go hibernate back home. Alec's been down in Alabama. That must be where I was getting those spam calls. I got a spam call, about 9 of them, and they were collect calls from a jail in Alabama. That may have been Alec Lewis. So maybe we'll find out if he's been incarcerated at all since he went down there a couple of weeks ago. But we'll talk to him at 10. And then at 11 o'clock, we will talk to Dan Hayes of The Athletic and get our updates on the Twins. Health issues supreme right now. Team's feeling good on a 92-93 win pace into the break here. You get to host the Brewers on the other side of it. But health is an issue. And then the evergreen talker. Will the Pohlads try to make this thing better? Is there a way to make this thing better at the trade deadline? A year ago, they did nothing. And they ended up winning their first playoff games in nearly 2 decades and being game in that Astros series. So that was after doing nothing. A couple of years ago, they tried to make some moves, and they didn't even make the playoffs. So what's the mindset of a team that's all about right-sizing the business and scrambling, albeit it seems like in vain at this point, to get their product back on a television somewhere so people can watch it? It seems like this is a spot where maybe nothing is probably the preferred move, at least from inside the organization. What do you, Rubes, think? Probably differently. But look forward to the Wolves tonight. And, of course, 10 days starting tomorrow from Vikings training camp practices, which we will continue to celebrate. Let me see. I tried to get us to the finish line. We're not going to talk about NCAA 25 today, Brett. Okay?
All right.
It's just, it didn't make the mix. I can't relate. I don't know how the buttons work.
That's fine.
I sound so old when I say that.
Pass the clicker.
I do technically own a PS4, but I haven't played it. You love it, though, right?
It's the best thing ever. I'm going to probably play it the rest of the day after this. It'll be awesome.
That's
and I'll watch Wolves Summer League. Yeah, I don't have any kids.
Okay.
Don't have a girlfriend. Why not?
Summer League in the background.
Freedom's mine.
And who's your team?
Prefer not to say. Your Golden Gophers, of course. Duh.
It's Madison, isn't it?
Oh, it's the Golden Gophers, home of your Gophers.
Unbelievable.
The fan.
Thank you to Wendell Epps for joining. It was awesome to meet him today, and you get to hear him. He's the voice of Lynx basketball, so appreciate his time this morning. Thanks to Parker Fox, weekly guest. And thank you to Brett for producing 9 to noon. He'll be back with me tomorrow. And again, athletic vibe. Continue our way through. Local maintenance days ensue. And we appreciate you joining 9 to noon with your ears when you choose to do so. The program is next. Have a great day.
Podcast today's Paul Allen Show, or listen back to previous show and interviews by going to the iHeartRadio app or KFAN.com.